Welcome to Soft Bites Podcast. Your life, your dentistry. We talk about ways to have more fun and meaning in one of the coolest and most rewarding professions in medicine. Conversations on how to bring awareness, create a healthy workplace, and provide emotional insights to make dentistry a fulfilling activity while making space for one's wonder, creativity, and freedom. Here are your hosts, Manuela and George Andre.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again. So this is the fourth episode of Soft Bites podcast. And I'm here with George Andre. Hello, Andre. How are you?
Hi again. I'm still in the south of Portugal.
In a beautiful setting.
Yeah, just a beautiful setting. The ocean on the back, and again, there's the guy playing saxo on the back. So try not to get too bothered with that.
We will have him as a soundtrack of our conversation.
That's it. You have to embrace. Things.
Yeah, especially things we cannot control, right? That's one of the secrets for stress reduction, to accept what you cannot control. So today we're going to talk about how to delegate with success and how to ensure quality. And I want to start by saying, and I always say this is not only if you are a practice owner and you have to delegate your work or parts of your work to colleagues or to your associates. This is also if you are a dentist working for another dentist, an associate in a practice or in a company. And if you are a specialist, or if you want to start doing more specialized work, you have to be able to delegate, right? And in my opinion, for you to be able to delegate with success, you have to trust. You have to have this trust, not only on your colleagues, but also on the clinic, on the staff, that everything is going to work out well. And sometimes that's not easy to happen on dentistry. So my question to you, Andrea, because I know that you started to delegate already many years ago in your career, right? When exactly did you start to delegate work? When did you realize that you had to start to delegate work?
Well, in the beginning, when I opened my practice, I had this very empiric way. I start to write down some rules, and I only work with one dental nurse, and she had about 20 years of experience when she started to work with me. So I think that she must have thought that I was quite crazy, because she was used to a very traditional way of dentistry. So yes, I started writing down, but I had no idea what I was doing. My background, my father had a restaurant, and he micromanaged basically everything. He worked 24/7. And so that was the role model that I had. And of course, I had to do something different, but I wasn't really sure of what that was. Then I only realized that I had to open my practice to do the dentistry that I wanted. Then I also knew that I needed to have I need to learn abroad, and I wanted to go abroad. And so I went to London, and I did a orthodontic degree there. And one of the guys that I met there, Alok, which became one of my best friends, he basically showed me a world of the non-technical part of dentistry that I thought was just not important. I thought that if I was a good technician, I think that things would work out. But that's, as we know, that's not the case. I mean, you can work very, very hard, and you can be a very good technician, but things may not work out, because if you are a very good technician, that will bring success, and success will bring complexity, and complexity is the worst thing that can happen to you. So in a certain way, success is also the worst thing that can happen to you. So you have to deal with that. And Alec told me, and he showed me many insights and many books. And I remember he came to Portugal to see me work, because at that time I already had some very nice cases. And I went to London to stay at his place, and I saw this huge amounts of books on how people work, on management, on marketing, on psychology, that I never had seen, and I thought it was just not important. So yes, it was through my friend that I realized that you need to be a good manager. You need to, I wouldn't say good, but you need to think about management, and you need to incorporate it, because it's impossible to grow, and it's impossible to be a one-man show today. It's impossible. And like you were saying in the last episode, it's dentistry is there is no longer unidisciplinary dentistry. So you need to delegate. And of course, there's also that view that you can work as a referral practice, and it's also possible. It can work. It's less and less likable to work, but it can work. I mean, you can be a boutique that only does aesthetics, or you can be like a boutique practice that only does endo. You can also do only ortho. But my idea is that kind of work, and it still works in the US. It still works a little bit in the UK, but I don't know many regions of the world that still happens. I mean, the US and the UK, there's this culture of referral practices, but the harsh reality is that patients want everything under one ceiling. And patients want more comfort. They want less visits. They have less time. So this demands that you are able to provide a large part of dental services only one ceiling. And yes, and this means many people working with you, not only you, because if it's only a one-man show, you don't need to manage that much. On the other hand, which is good, on the other hand, you are very dependent on yourself. I mean, if you get sick, if you go through hard times, you won't work, and you depend only on yourself. The other opposite way is that you work with more people, and yes, they got your back, but they are also more complex to manage. So even though it's appealing to work as a one-man show, and I see some people that after 10 years of 20 years of working in managing big practices, they just want to work stop managing people and to go back to their roots and have a practice only with themselves and their wives, or themselves and their nurses. But I think it's a very romantic view of dentistry that I don't think it fits in today's reality. Because like I was saying, I think patients have less and less time, and you will end up eventually, and the vast majority of practices will have to implement some at least some specialties. I mean, you need to have an endodontist, you need to have an orthodontist, you need to have a periodontologist or an implantologist. You may need to have a pediatric dentistry. You may need to do someone that does aesthetics, composites, and then some other person who does ceramics, because it's not possible to do everything now. And also the technical demandings of dentistry, they don't allow to be work that you do so many stuff. I mean, it's impossible for you to do good endo, good ortho, good implant. It's just impossible. Some things can combine it. I mean, you can eventually do some implants and perio, some implants and restorative, but it's impossible to do composites and implants and endo, and it's impossible to do that. So you are what I'm trying to say is that you may think a lot about that, but eventually you will have to implement some sort of other colleagues working your practice. Your practice does not have to be big. Don't get me wrong. You may have only like one chair or eventually two chairs, but those chairs will have to be split between some different colleagues to to have to be able to offer the services that the patients want, because most patients today, adult patients, they need some sort of ortho, they need some sort of aesthetics, they need some sort of implants and perio. So it's unavoidable that you work with several people. I mean, even if so, dentistry is more and more teamwork, and if you don't learn how to manage a team, I mean, you can't be doing dentistry actually.
So let's divide this episode in. I think that for you to delegate with success and to ensure quality, you have to be able to delegate to say to your patients. So let's divide this in patients and in team. Because I don't know if you have this experience, but there are still a lot of colleagues that have difficulties to explain to their patients why they have to see other colleagues. Why are you sending me to another person? But maybe they already, for example, let's say the endo. But remember 2 years ago, I had also a tooth and you did the root canal for me. So why now do I have to?
Yeah.
So let's first talk about how you can explain in an effective way to your patients that you are sending them to another colleague.
I have a very, very funny story that I usually tell, because I this was very difficult for me, because I come from a small town, and I used to treat, and I do still treat, people that know me since I was a child. So that's how my practice got going, right, with people that knew me. So it's very difficult that you tell the people that made your practice start. Very difficult to tell them that you are not going to do that, because it's human. We are human, and we create bonds. So it's difficult. If I had opened my practice in Porto, which is 20 kilometers from my town, it would probably be different. I would not be having those issues, but yes, I have them. But then I think the decision you need to do is actually, how do you want your life to be, and what is eventually more important. I think if you are honest with your patients, they will eventually understand it. So I had this couple of strategies. One of them was, it's difficult to tell that to the patient, but you have to tell them yourself eventually. So what I had is, whenever they would come to my appointments, I had something that was written down that I would deliver to them. This is a very British style of doing things, of doing letters, everything is written down. But they, and in that warning, I wouldn't say warning, but that information, when they came to the appointment, and while they were waiting for the appointment, I had something that said something like this. At this point in time, I'm more focused on giving courses to colleagues. I'm going to stop doing some procedures that I used to do. I have a team. Those are the basic ideas. So I'm giving courses. I'm delegating to a team that I trust. I am making sure that the quality is there. And I am available if you want to talk, if you have any doubt. But yes, I had to stop doing some procedures because I was focusing on something different, right? They would sit down and they would come to then they will come to the appointment and say, "Oh, you are going to stop seeing me." And so basically they were already prepared, right? So it was less harsh, the conversation. I said, well, it's true, because, it's impossible at this point in time. And I was honest with them. Look, even in terms of I have some physical issues due to my posture, and I cannot be doing all this, and it's impossible. And also in that letter, it said that the trend of medicine, the trend of dentistry is this way. So they have to understand. So there are a lot of subliminal messages there that, well, this is what the trend of dentistry is. They are doing things better than me. So those are the main goals that I wanted to pass through. Dentistry is evolving. Some other people do things better than me. I have to focus. I am tired and I'm physically ill because of the excessive work. I am here to assure the quality. I trust my team, and yes, you will be given the best treatment because I'm not be able to provide this as well as other people are. And some of the treatments would be that I wanted to delegate would be the control appointments with the hygiene, and would be endodontics. I want to delegate that completely as well, and some of the most simple restorative dentistry. So when they came to the appointment, they already started so you're going to leave me, and some of them would be pissed off, of course. But that's just, you have to think about this. If you are honest, you'll have to eventually understand that you will not be that some people will not like it.
Yeah.
So yes, that was one of the things. But then I had some strategies that were and then what I would say sometimes, well, the next appointment is still going to be with me, but the other ones are not, something like that. So I would make a radical cut. I would make it softly. Some of them were my friends, and some of them I would only see them in the dental office. So I kept seeing those because I just wanted to see them. Then there was also this strategy that we used, which was some anchors that I use would be, well, if you go to a restaurant, the cooker is not answering the phone. It's the same thing here. I mean, I cannot be able to do everything for myself. I'm not answering your phone. And for some stuff, I want the best for you. And there was this was the dead punch that I used, this thing that I'm about to say. Look, I tell him, look, do you know, my father, he came to the dentist the first time when we was about 50 or 60. And he came to the practice and he had a root canal treatment to do, which is exactly what I'm delegating. Do you know who did that treatment? They said, well, you did it. No, I haven't. I haven't done it. It was my associate. Why? Because I want the best for my father, and I want the best for you as well. So once you throw that punch, I mean, it's hard for them to don't understand that. They need to understand what you are doing. And also, it will be difficult. It will, because you will feel that you are that you are letting them down. It's difficult, but eventually you have to understand that you are being honest with yourself, and then things change, and that you have to evolve, and they have to understand that's the best for them. There's also some things. There's also this thing that I learned from Casey Neistat, the YouTuber, and I think it's very interesting, which is, do you need to be, this is about time management, do you need to be for everyone at every time? And especially when it talks when you are talking about friends, and I have this adolescence and childhood, which was very rich in the street. I had lots of friends, and in Espinho, I mean, most people know me since I'm very little, and telling them that I'm not going to treat them, and especially also having probably some of the highest prices in town, it's difficult to manage that, right? It's very difficult. So one of the things that I learned with Casey Neistat is that you don't need to be there all the time. You don't need to be for them all the time. You need to be for them when it's important. And I think this is critical, because if they want to talk to you, it's because it's important, and you have to be there for them. If something goes wrong, if they are going through hard times, you have to be there. But you don't have to be there every time, all the time for them. And so for the patients, I think this is critical. And also, they need to understand that they go for your practice not because of you, but because of the system that eventually you implemented. So they have to understand that the dental nurses will still remind them of the appointments. They will call them the next day after the extraction. They will send them the post-operative care 1 week before, and everything should be ready for the surgery like 1 week before. we will communicate transparently our treatment plans. We will say everything that we are about to charge them beforehand. We don't do anything without letting them know exactly what they are going to pay, the warranties, how much they are going to pay. We are completely transparent on that. And I think that they eventually thought that, well, if Andre is doing this, it's because it's because he trusts it. He trusts the processes and he trusts the people that he's working with them. So otherwise they wouldn't be here. But yes, it's true. I mean, it's they will always but and even dentistry is a very intimate procedure.
Yeah.
Once I was talking to the Vigos, Alessandro de Vigos, it's a common friend, and he was saying something very interesting. Some people would rather be naked in front of you than showing you their mouth.
True.
And it's because it's very personal, and it's difficult for them to change to some other colleagues, and I understand that. So you have to make sure that you have to work on the culture, and then we come back to the delegation. You have to make sure that you work on the culture. I mean, it's not just one strategy. It's a lot of strategies at the same time. It's communicating, making sure that the system is there, making sure that the patients feel that there is a system in place, that there is trust, and there is a culture, and that they trust that culture of that place. And I always say that we don't sell dentistry, we sell trust. Because I think in every business we are only selling one thing, which is trust, whatever the product or whatever the service it is. So there's a whole lot of things. It's communicating with the patient, is assuring that the system is there, is communicating in several ways, and making sure that all their possible allegations are met in the communication. They have to understand, yes, there is he trusts the team. He's tired. He cannot do everything alone. His own family is treated in this way. So yes, what they are doing must be. And this is the trend of dentistry. So he's modern. He knows what he's doing. So yes, there are several ways that several layers that you need to implement on communicating that.
So you just talked about the patient and touched the second part, but I want to go on the part in between, which is you have to have a system in place, and everyone has to follow it. I saw that system in place that you have on that class of management that you invite me to, because there are some pushy patients that sometimes just said, but I want the appointment with him because I know he's the best, and please, can I have the appointment with him? And you had a colleague phone to your practice, not saying, of course, who he is, and trying to make a first-time appointment for you. And one of your assistants picked up the phone, and she said, no, but sorry, you're going to get another colleague. You're going to be well served. Dr. Andre, maybe in the future, if he needed, he will see you. And she went through all the points, and she stuck to it, and she said no in an assertive way, but in a nice way, and she gave him alternatives. So I think it's very important also for us to establish that having a system in place, it's important, and making sure that everyone follows that system is very important also, because you were talking about friends, but there are the other patients that are not your personal friends, but are the ones that are really pushy and want something. And if you don't have the system in place, and if you don't, then there starts to have breaches on the system, and it can collapse. So I mean, you make sure that that the system is applied, right? So everything is written down. There are very specific rules how things work, and then everyone knows how things are going to happen, right? Because this is a very important part on delegate. Because when we talk about delegate, we all know what it is, but how to make sure that things work in the right way, things work in a non-stressful way, it's very important. And for this to happen, for me, and I think you agree with this, it's fundamental to have a system in place and to make sure that everyone knows how to follow and how to apply that system.
Well, yes, I was previously talking more about how that transformation takes place, how you go from one man show practice to a teamwork practice, and that transition is difficult. But then what you were saying is that how you maintain a teamwork practice, right, without breaches, and that's writing things down. That one of the things that I think it's most important for people to understand. This is in everything. What isn't written doesn't exist, and procedures they don't need to be only talked and discussed. They need to be written down. There's something magical and impactful on placing things down in a paper. I mean, writing things is what made our civilization special, what allowed learning and stuff like that. So there's something absolutely, and Jordan Peterson says that if you are articulating in writing, you are absolutely lethal. And I would say lethal in a positive way, but it's true. If you are articulated writing down things, you can reach whatever you want, because if you practice that art of writing things, and writing and the art of writing things is the art of simplification as well, because you have to really think to make things simple and things that work, because one thing is the idea, the other thing is the execution of the idea. They need to be simple, and a procedure is much more than a procedure. A procedure is something that is something that we want to happen, but it can happen with the persons that you have because of the way that is written and the way that is transmitted and the way that is simplified. So let me give you an example of the thing that you were saying about the phone call. So basically, when someone calls my practice, basically they have two options. There's only two options. The option is either they have an issue or they want an opinion. What is the issue? Well, they want to have an hygiene done. Well, they have pain in a tooth. They broke a tooth. Okay, so the patient is booked for a treatment, right? But if they choose that they want to have an opinion, the patient is booked for an initial examination. Or after he solves the initial problem, he is then booked for initial examination. So I'm never the one that does the initial examinations. And I learned this with Galip Gurel, because if I do the initial examinations, and many people tell me that I would earn more money, but the practice would be dependent on me. So, for example, I am here for a week. I would be in Costa Rica in December and January for almost a full month. How would my practice work? So if I saw my every patient, if I wanted to be the rock star of my practice wouldn't function if I wanted to have like 1 month off. And in the future, and I would like to have even more than 2 months off per year. So how can my practice work? So when they call, of course, many of them, they heard my name and they want to be seen by me. And my dental nurse goes through a script, which is difficult to follow, I have to understand, because some patients, they can be pushy. But they say, well, but I want him because I've heard he's the best. I've heard
she did it very well, huh? She did it very well.
She did it well. She did it well. But there's a trick there. The trick is, the most obvious thing is never to say the word no, of course. But you have to guide the person who wants to see me to understand that yes, he will be available, but so it's not saying that he's not going to see you, but you have to go through a screening. Yes, he will see you, but some colleague will screen you first. He will get some information so that when you go to Dr. Andre, he has all the information to be seen. And of course, that my colleagues in the initial examination, and the initial examination is a checklist that has been contributed, and that checklist has been done with the contributions of everybody. It's a checklist that follows a logical way in terms of communication, in terms of from the outside to the inside. So the goal of the initial examination is, number one, to collect the most amount of data, number one. Number two, to impress the patient, which is also important. I mean, the patient must get out of that initial examination feeling like no one examined me the way that these guys are doing. So yes, Dr. Andre is not here, but these guys, they know what they're doing. I mean, this is something serious. I mean, they are not joking around here. And number 3, to try to see up to which point the patient is willing to go in terms of if he wants a compromised treatment or if he wants a complex treatment. So if he wants a very simple treatment, which is not what I do personally, yes, he will not be probably be reaching me. They tell them, look, yes, we have this, but Dr. Andre is not doing this. If you want him to come to see, yes, but I'm just telling that this is something really simple, and this is, but yes, he will be able to see you. And if he wants a complex treatment, and of course, in this initial examination, they have to give some rough values of rough numbers in terms of treatment costs. And if the patient is willing to, or if the patient wants more, yes, then we do a treatment plan. And if they want me to be present, I would be present at the second appointment of the treatment plan presentation, but I will be present when I know the patient is willing to do a complex treatment or he wants to hear more about that. And the goal is never only about the money. The goal is about the complexity. But what I don't want that in the initial examination, money is not talked in any way, because what happens is that you may have someone that goes to initial examination, and if you are very strict of, I know, don't talk about money, then we come and collect all the data and present, let's say, a $20,000 treatment plan, and then you go to the second appointment, we present it, and the guy says, like, what are you talking about? What are you talking? Why are you giving me? I earned like 500 euros a month or 100 or 700 euros a month. Why are you giving me this? I mean, the guy they may eventually be shocked and feel offended. So it's important that you, within the respect and with sensitivity, that you understand up to which point the patient is willing to go. And sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes it's just about the complexity. Yeah. Sometimes the patient needs a full mouth rehabilitation, and he may not do it in ceramics, he may do it in composites, but you need to have the sensitivity to understand that this is not turning the patients who have money more important than the others. It's just a question of understanding up to which point the patient is willing to go. So yes, I'm never present at the first appointment. And if we feel it's needed, or if they want, I be present on the second appointment, but that will be a more scheduled way. And I will have my script ready. I will have my treatment plan ready. And usually I'm on the second appointment, it's always me and the guy that did the initial examination. So yes, there needs to be a system in place, and the way that people answer the phone, they need to transform the guy that says, I want him, into a guy that, yes, I understand there's a system, I understand there's a team, and I understand that I need to be screened before. So that's it. So he will see you, yes, but you need to gather some data before. You need to do some exams, if you want to say it. So it's not a no, it's yes, but for us to bring you the best quality treatments, we need to see you and know you and see up to a point you are willing to go. And I do charge that appointment. I do charge it. Some people don't charge it, but we do charge it. Yes. And it's never me that does that. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, and I'm going to ask your opinion about this, for me, to delegate with success and to do it in a way that you ensure quality, it has all to do with accountability. Taking responsibility for getting things done as you are expected to, without excuses. Without excuses. And I think that having a clear communication, having things written down, having a system in place, all of this, sharing the same values, having very clear values, sharing the same values, having regular team meetings, all of that leads to accountability, leads to creating accountability. Then that will lead to for you to develop your own autonomy on your work, to have also the confidence on your own work, on your performance, on delivering your best technical work. What do you think? For me, accountability is key. So taking responsibility for getting things done as expected. Of course, you have to know what is expected, and that's why communication is important. Doing this without excuses, so no excuses here. Otherwise, you will be held accountable. You have a system for that. Also, I know we're going to talk about that in the future, which is amazing. But this is my opinion. So what is your opinion? How can you delegate with success and ensure quality?
Well, I think having it written, there are two very important components: having it written and have regular meetings. I will actually see there's a third component which we already talked, which is the one-on-one meeting as well. So regular appointments with everybody, having everything written down, and one-on-one meetings. Those are fundamental components. I mean, you cannot hold anyone accountable if they don't feel there's a system going on to create a system. Let's say they need to understand there's an effort to create a system, and they also need to understand something that I talk to them very often. I tell them, look, patients, they are not coming to us because of me or because of how this assistant, she's sweet with them, or how the receptionist has a lot of experience, or how Louise has a great smile, or how whatever I am. They don't come because of that. They should not come because of that. And actually, that's not why they come. Because if you have a beautiful dentist, a beautiful female doctor that attracts a lot of patients, for example, that's not a good reason. That's not a sustainable reason. Or if she's very nice, that's not a sustainable reason to maintain a practice. The reason is the system. So the system, the culture, is the most important thing in a practice. So our main goal as a practice, our main goal in my practice is to work this system to maximum perfection, even though there's never perfection. It's to work this system as much as you can. That's the most important thing. And this system needs to be written down. And I was even searching here. We have something that I learned from a book of a guy called Sam Carpenter, which is called Work the System, which is basically, it's nothing new. It's the same thing that the book E-Myth says, that we are going to place also on the notes of the podcast. E-Myth, How Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. This is a classical book written, I think, in the 90s. This is basically, you need to have a structure in place, and that needs to be written, because everything works out well until you are working alone. Once you call someone else to work with you, then you start to have issues. Yeah. So there must be, people need to understand what happens. And for people who are not very familiar with this concept, I mean, this is why McDonald's is the same way, works the same way everywhere in the world, or pretty much the same way. Well, but you may say, well, but I don't like McDonald's. I don't want my practice to be junk food based practice, or with the same philosophies. Yes, but Ritz Hotel, it works in the same way. Ritz Hotel has the same protocols everywhere. If you go to one Ritz, they write down what you like, and if you go to the second time to a different hotel, they know exactly what you want. So it's a question of making an organized structure. And one thing that helps is, because you may say, well, but how do I start writing that down? Well, one thing that I learned from Sam Carpenter, Work the System, there are 3 components of what you have written. One of them is the strategic goals, and then you have to write down 10 at the maximum strategic goals, which is like basically the culture. Okay. Number 2 is the operational principles, and you may have like 30 maximum. I'll explain what that is. And number 3, the procedure. So the procedure is easy. The procedure is a sequence of steps for something to be done. For example, telephone answering. So there's A, B, there's this decision tree. So that is the most basics, the most specific stuff. For every procedure, there are 10 steps or 12 steps or 20 steps or a decision tree. That's easy. Now, the first layer is the strategic objectives. And that it should be 10 maximum, which is basically sets the culture of your team. So let me read you some of mine. We are one of the dental practices with highest quality and transparency in Portugal. Number 2, our main strategy is to work our systems and protocols until maximum perfection with the goal of proportionate health and satisfaction to our patients, and also a feeling of professional fulfillment and personal fulfillment to our team. So that's a very broad thing, but that's number 2. So working the systems and make sure we give a sense of well-being and order to our patients and to the team. That's objective. That's strategic objectives. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is operational principles, which is a middle layer between the strategic objectives and the procedures. And this is, let's say, where you go to if something new happens that was not written down, or let me give you an example. So, for example, we never do treatment above a certain value if we don't explain the patient the amount that he's going to pay. So this is a golden rule, let's say. Another thing, whenever someone reaches you something, you always say thank you. If a nurse gives you something, you thank her. And you always ask something by saying please at the end. Okay? This is an operational principle. We know we have to do this. I mean, this is not something that is done in a specific procedure, but it's something more broad, okay? And then you have the procedures. And the procedures, there are 100 of procedures. If you do a class 1, if you do a class 2, it depends on the depth of the pulp. So, for example, for operative dentistry, if you want to get really technical, we have 3 sorts of depths of the restoration, the direct restoration, which is you are more than 1 millimeter away from the pulp, you are between 0.5 and 1 millimeter away from the pulp, or you are less than 0.5 from the pulp. And the procedure, the materials that you need to use are different. That's just an example, and everything is detailed down, what we use, what we don't use. And we want to simplify the materials that we use. This is very technical, of course. We also know how to proceed in the posterior tooth, that is root canal treatment. We need a root coverage, and then we tell them that the ideal will be to do a crown or an onlay. And we have that guide all written down. How do you talk to the patient? So these are procedures. These are very well thought procedures, and everybody respects them. And there's never perfection, of course, but we try to make sure that these happen 9 to 95% of the time. But if you get 80% of the time, it's also very good. But besides the procedure, there are the strategic goals and operational principles that will clarify you whenever you have you have doubt. And everybody that comes to work with me, they must read our manual that starts with the objective, the strategic goals. Then there's the operational principles, and then the procedure step by step. They must read the manual, and they must see us work for at least 1 month if it is a dentist. And if it is a nurse, they step by step they start to get into the flow. So yes, everything must be written now. That must be a structure. This structure and this manual is made with the contribution of everybody. So everybody must feel that they have something to say. Everybody must feel that they own the practice in a certain way. So yes, there's meetings, there's things written, and there's one-on-one. But the things written is really important because it's a gigantic work to be able to write down the full procedure of a practice. And some people that come to my practice, that come to my management course, and they feel it's overwhelming. But you have to start somewhere. And how do you start? You have to, like we were saying in the last episode, you have to find time to work on that, to work on the practice, and not in the practice. You have to be able to set some time to work to do these procedures. And like you were saying, that we will give a lot of protocols, and we will have a lot of templates that we will give in the course, in the leadership, the conscious leadership course in next year. But eventually, they cannot just copy paste that and show to the team. They have to go through that. They have to read that. They have to adapt to their own reality.
To their own reality.
Yes, that process is very important. Yeah, so that's it. So it's written stuff, and in the written stuff, strategic goals, operational principles, procedures. Then there's regular meetings with everybody. And then there's also the one-on-one, which is something that I need to improve, I have to say.
Okay, so I would like to take you through some tips that I have written down, because I have the experience of some colleagues they know all of the theory, but then they get frustrated because of the lack of accountability in the workplace. You know, like colleagues that don't show up to the meetings, things like that. So I gathered here 7 tips to developing a positive accountability culture in the clinic, right? And I would like your feedback and your input. And then the last one, I would ask you to give the one that you develop yourself, but just in a very light way, because I think this would be something good for us to develop in its own episode. The way that you.
Yeah, I will try to make very short comments to each of those tips. Yeah.
So the first one is practice what you preach on accountability, because for me you need to be a role model you should practice what you preach. I think that's for nowadays. That's very important on nowadays society. What do you think?
Yes. If you have to lead by example. I don't have kids. I don't have children. But something that resonates a lot with me is that you cannot. The best way to teach your kids is to be to actually be what you want them to be. I mean, if you want to be a supporting husband, you have to be a supporting husband for their mother. You cannot tell them to be a supporting. You have to show them that you are that. You have to become the person that you really want to be, and that is never effortless. You need to have effort, and I think in a business it's the same thing. They have to realize that you are willing to do exactly what they are willing in terms of the degree of responsibility, and that you have to be able to do what you expect them to do if that is your role as well. For example, if I communicate with if I have certain rules to communicate with the lab, I expect them to communicate in a certain way, and they have to understand that I do it in the same way. Okay, unless it's something that I'm delegating, right? But the same commitment. I mean, they have to look at you and understand that you are willing to do the stuff that most people are not willing to do, because that's why you are leading them. And what are the things that most people are not willing to do? Most people are not willing to share, to teach, to be supportive, to lead by example, because it's difficult. I mean, and if you are not willing to do that, I don't think you should be managing people. And not everybody needs to be managing people, of course. But if you think it's too much, if you think you would rather save your energy for your family, or you rather save your energy for some other activity, or for the sport that you are looking forward to do at the end of the day, if that's the main energy in your head, then you should not be the leader. And it's fine. And it's absolutely fine. So, yes, you have to lead by example. You have to be able to practice what you preach. So
the second one is to effectively communicate your expectations. So in the end, we already talked about this. Everything should be written. The system should be written. If it's not written, it doesn't exist. But I think that it's very important in clear communication to also never assume things. I mean, in any kind of communication, you should never assume anything.
You have to be specific.
Yeah, you have to be specific, and you really have to communicate what you expect from others to do. Right?
Let me give you an example.
In detail.
Yes. Let me give you an example. For example, we give warranties from our treatment, which is a controversial issue. So if Teresa does a restoration that within 2 years it fails, and then Luis has to redo it, Luis earns the money that he's supposed to, and that money is taken out from what Teresa earned 1 year before. I think there's transparency there. So if I have, for example, if I have someone that is a friend of mine and I'm giving him like a 10% discount, if Teresa is doing the treatment, she earns full, like it was completely charged. So do you understand? So she's not, because I'm the friend of the patient, and she does not need to be negatively affected by that. So yes, they understand that this is the way that things work, but I have to. So for me to be able to demand from them, I also need to be fair with them. So that's just an example. This means that two things. Number one, we must work with very, very good materials and have time so that the failure rate of our restorations is very good and much higher than the warranties that we give to the patients. And number two, for the second example, it means that whenever I'm thinking about giving a discount, I have to think twice.
And also I think that sometimes you only go into detail when things fail, when you are already on that blaming game, and sometimes you enter in clinics and you can feel that that's to do with the energy that you were talking on the last episode.
But that there are many leaders that they think that your associates should not be paid for something that someone else has done, that you have done, and it went wrong. So because that's just professional solidarity. I mean, it makes no sense, because all of a sudden you start to realize that people start to feel bad regarding, because there's this sense of unfairness. So you have to, whatever they do, if it's not their, whatever they are redoing, they should be paid for. There needs to be a policy. So what do you get paid when you see an emergency that is not from you, that is from your colleague? And it depends on the time that you spend. If you spend more than 10 minutes, then you should charge for that. So this is specific. You have to be really specific.
To be really specific, to really enter on detail, it stops you from when things go wrong to enter on the blaming game. And sometimes the communication on clinics is just based on the blaming game. So if you want to have other kind of communication, if you want to have a positive culture of accountability, it's very important to communicate your expectations in a detailed way, and preferably to have all this written down, so that there is no doubts about anything. So third tip, provide assessments based only on facts. And this is because sometimes accountability becomes emotional, because we are all human beings, right? And but if you have, and in dentistry this is very easy, because you have the metrics, right? You have the goals, you have the metrics. So I think that, in my opinion, this can be done based on facts. So if you write your systems, or if you communicate your expectations, just like we were talking on the earlier point, based on facts and not on emotion, not on the blaming game, again, it's become easier to understand and easier to implement. What do you think?
Yeah, of course that you have to have the numbers. Let me give you some examples. For example, if you have an employee or an assistant that consistently comes late, in order to use metrics and not emotion, the best thing that you need to do is to have like a fingerprint schedule control. So there's no emotional there. You just implement that. And at the end of the month, said, look, you have consistently arrived late here. These are the numbers. This is what the computer is telling us. So what are you going to do about this? How much? So we have to have a conversation. So this means I will have to reduce this in your earnings. That's one example, because you have the metrics. Another one is we have what we call the daily calculations of each dentist, and the dentists, they calculate themselves the amount, what they earn per appointment. And per each appointment, they know exactly, because we have everything written down, the amount of variable costs, which is like composite and anesthesia, and the amount of fixed costs per hour. So at the end of the day, they will have a number. They will know what they will take home and what the practice has earned, considering the costs. And that brings a lot of truth and a lot of transparency to what is going on. And they have the metrics there, and they understand that those metrics are updated every year, and they have real numbers. So at the end of the day, they say, well, yes, I took home 200 or 300 euros or whatever, but I also know that the practice only earned 50 euros, for example. So this brings truth and transparency to what is going on, right? And ideally, those numbers should always be accumulated so that you, at each day, you know exactly what you made as a business or what you lost as a business. So there should be daily metrics, weekly metrics, monthly metrics, and yearly metrics. And I know it seems a lot of work, but it's not that difficult. You just have to know the variable costs. And for example, in the course, we'll give you all the templates with that. You have to know all the fixed costs, which is basically the amount of fixed costs that you have divided by the amount of hours that you work every day. And then you'll reach a number. And once you get that daily feedback, it's much easier to do the transformations. And it's much easier even to convince yourself that you have to cut costs here or cut costs there, and to maybe have some more difficult talks with some of the dentists, or because you have facts. You are supported by facts and not by emotion.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very important. And I think that in dentistry, even just like you said, even the protocols for the treatments, right? Everything, you have facts for everything. So it will, if you provide the information based on those facts, it will be much easier not only to implement, but also to for the team to have this understanding about what's going on. And also it will remove the emotional part, because sometimes when you have too much emotions, then it's difficult. It's difficult. Okay, so fourth, delegate control with accountability, and this is basically my vision on empower your team and not micromanaging, right? So if you, I don't know about your experience, but I think that sometimes there are dentists that run their practices, or even if they are not practice owners, they run their day on micromanaging, and that can be very exhausting. So it's much easier if you empower your team, or empower yourself to with accountability.
I have to say I'm getting better, but I don't think that is one of the strong points of me as a person, because I started micromanaging a lot. And now I understand that it's impossible. Because when you micromanage, what I realize is that life runs through your fingers, which is like sand in the fingers. Your life is running, right? And you are not taking advantage of that, of life. And what do I mean by life? Life is letting people be themselves in the workplace. And everybody is different. Sometimes they laugh louder. Sometimes they have this. I mean, you have to have standards, of course, but these are human beings, and eventually they will disappoint you some days. They will not be perfect most of the time. But I think that the most important is that their intentions must be transparent into patients, into everybody. So if you have a good, sometimes if the intentions are there, if the patients understand the intentions, they will tolerate, they accept less strict behaviors, or less micro studied behaviors, or that you need to stand in a certain way, or you need to talk in a certain way, because that becomes too robotic, So there needs to be a balance there. And I cannot tell you how you can reach that balance, because the culture in a place is not something that you set, it's something that rises. Okay, so it's a mix of the different people that work there, and you have to let them be themselves within some certain limits. You cannot I think that the worst thing to ask in a person if they want to do some sort of transformation in their life is to ask them just to be themselves. Well, if you ask someone to be themselves, if the results that they are getting in some part of their life are not good, they will not they will not improve. So it's not about being yourself. It's about thinking how would you like yourself to be, and trying to be that person. And sometimes that person changes. In 10 years it changes, in 5 years it changes, but that thought process needs to be done by the whole team. How do we want to behave? How do we think this is important? And that can serve as a template, as a culture. And there's this book from this guy, Tony Aish. It's called Delivering Happiness, and he died a few years ago in dramatic conditions, but basically he was the CEO of Zappos. And Zappos was all about client happiness. And he has completely reinvented, and even Jeff Bezos from Amazon said that it was one of the biggest losses that in terms of businesses, because he basically reinvented the way that the patient experience was done, not with scripts. So the employees did not have scripts, but they have a very strict hiring policy. They wanted to know who the people were and the intentions of the people. So I think that, especially in small places, you don't have a full year to be doing interviews. Sometimes you have to accept people, assistants, and sometimes doctors, which are not what you idealize as a person, physically, emotionally, mentally, but you have to work on them. You have to be able to try to inspire them in some way. So this is why the personality and the character are very important when you are hiring. For example, I'm hiring a nurse now, and for me, the most important thing is not their experience. The most important thing is their willingness to learn. But it's difficult to access that. It's very difficult, and people are different. So I think that the take-home message is you have to be able to create a culture, but you also need to let go of trying to control everything, because if you try to control everything, it becomes a very dense energy and a very negative energy. So people need to be there's a mix of being themselves and being professional, and that's difficult. And again, an example is sometimes you can see that someone is having a bad day, and calling them the attention must be done in a very sensitive way, or sometimes waiting for the next day to call them to talk to them. Sometimes you cannot be military. You cannot always be military. You have to be preventive and inspire a culture rather than forcing a culture. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah,
but it's difficult.
Delegating and it's difficult. But I have something written here. It says delegating control means having the right information, the right tools, and the right training to make the right decisions. I think that,
and also just let me just add something. When no one knows you, when you have a practice that no one knows you, the behavior of people inside is much more important, because you have to conquer the patients by showing the least flaws as possible. The early years are more difficult. Once you get your name out there and people come, because many people come to my practice, but they already know the practice. You have the feeling that they expect trust, they expect transparency, they expect non-pressure sales. They know that. They know that's what's going to happen. So they are more tolerant with the rest. I don't know if it makes sense, but as you get more successful, people are more tolerant because they have this notion that they know you. If no one knows you, you have to build that. You have to build that image since day one, since the first contact. So I think that people that run the practice for 20 years sometimes are not the best people to give advice for people that are starting to run the practice. So I think I would probably give more strict advice in the first years and less strict advice now, because I am more successful, let's say it. And also let me point this out, and I know this is controversial, but I think that even the team in the dental nurses, if you can start from scratch with them, like people that want to start a career, I think it's better in the beginning to have people that don't have such experience. And I know this is controversial. I understand this. But for example, I started with a nurse that had 20 years of experience, which was very good, which was amazing. But I needed to also have a mix with someone that was completely starting, and it was completely blank in terms of that I could train and that I could implement. So I think it's important to have a mix of people with more experience and less experience. I think the mix is important. Yeah.
Okay, fifth. So align accountability with your clinic or your practice objectives. And this, I think this is very, very important, because if you don't have the alignment, then you're not going to get to the same place. So it's like you have different directions, right? So, and I think it's important also to seek alignment, and we talked about this on the previous episode. So for team members to seek alignment of their personal goals with their work. I mean, and personal, it's of course adapted to dentistry and what they want from dentistry. So I think for accountability, this is very important for you to have your for you to be aligned with what the clinic stands for and what the clinic practices for. So when you said that you have that system all written down with all kinds of goals, organizational goals, clinical, everything that you have written down, and you give it to a dentist, a colleague dentist that it has a possibility to work for you, or to a nurse, or to someone that's going to be part of your team, it's very important that they feel like aligned with that they share that objectives. What is your opinion about that?
Well, they contribute to the development of the rules. That's number one.
Even better, yeah.
They contribute to that. They need to contribute to that. Another thing is to have the one-on-one meetings to understand exactly what they want. But sometimes you cannot always give them what they want. What it means, it needs to be an effort. Let me give you an example here. A small story about my practice. The first guy that started to work with me was a guy called Carlos. And I knew from the beginning that he wanted to get out of dentistry and study medicine. So I supported him. I completely supported him, and I still treat him and his family. He's an orthopedic surgeon now, and he was just this genius guy. But he wanted to do something else. So I knew from the first start that that's what he wanted to do. So yes, I supported him. So even though I knew I could not count him in the future, I want him to feel the best way possible, and I want to also take advantage of his qualities. Then that came another one called Rui, and he did the same thing. He practiced with me for many years, and then he realized that he was very limited with he said that the money limitations that did not allow to do the best dentistry were something that was bothering him, and that did not happen that much in medicine, especially if you are working for national health medicine. So you would do more what is the most appropriate and less dependent on the money of the patient, because dentistry is, the private dentistry has a lot of dependence on that. So yes, he did finish dentistry. Then he started working only doing oral surgery, and now he went and now he's living in the Netherlands, and he's working as a maxillofacial surgeon or something like that. So yes, I do, and I always supported him on that. Then I also had Teresa that is still working with me, and there are many people that there are a few people that also work with me. Then I had Teresa that she did a master's degree on aesthetics, and I delegated the prosthodontic part for her. I started to delegate and she does a lot of prosto now. Then I had another guy called Luis, and he was doing the endo. And then Luis wanted also to do the prosto part and the implants. And I said, well, I can delegate the implants and the periosurgery and surgery to you, yes. And he did a postgraduate course on implants, and I did delegate that to him. But he also wanted to. He told me I would also like to do prosto, and I said, well, I'm sorry, but I cannot give you the prosto to do because we work as a team here. And only when Teresa is completely overwhelmed with the prosto, then you can start to the prosto. Because as long as Teresa, if she wants to delegate everything and only does the prosto, as long as she has prosto, she will have the priority to do the prosto. Because I think this is accountability also. Yeah. They have to understand that there are some that I cannot defraud the expectations of other people. You know, if they work with me for such a long time, and if they want to this, yes, in the same way that if someone else comes and wants to do implants, they will not do implants unless Luis is fed up with the implants, you know? I don't agree. I don't believe in a model that everybody does everything. I don't think that works.
Me
I don't think that works. I think that there need to be specialization, yes, for organization. There needs to be. So yes, you have to ask them what they want. You have to help them get what they want. But that needs to be within the scope of the practice and within the limitations of the practice. And they have to understand that. And they have to understand that you have their back for them to have your back. But yes, there are some rules and and people need to be respected. And the especially people that are working with you for a long time.
And that takes me to the seven point. Be an advocate and promoter for team members. So that's what you said. You need to have them their back, and they will have yours. So I think in dentistry, this is very important for you to support and of course assist your colleagues, but also to be an advocate for that, because sometimes we know that there are it's very easy for patients to say, and did this or did that or whatever. And not only patients, I mean, even outside the clinic, I think that it's absolutely part of the accountability is for you to defend. And that's an important part of the one-to-one that you were saying. So if there is feedback to be done, if there's things to be worked on, which is absolutely normal, then they should be done in a private conversation, and you should talk about it in a private way and not in front of patients or assistants or nurses. Or
That's a very important part. If you want to point the finger at someone, you should ideally do it in private. Yes, that is true. But sometimes you don't have time to do that, you know, and it's very tempting to call the attention in front of everybody. It's it's something that you have to keep going and learning and keep going and learning, and I think it's also important to forgive yourself if you make some mistakes. You have to realize that you are also human, and sometimes you make mistakes, and you will make mistakes as a leader. Some things will go right. Mostly things will go right if you work hard. Some things will go wrong. Some people will disappoint you. You will disappoint some people. But I always think this is a numbers game, right? So it's if you work to get things right 80% of the time, you should be happy with that. Because if you work to be right 100% of the time, I think that you will reach 50s or 60 realizing that you have not lived your life. You were just too worried to making things perfect, and that cannot be. You have to savor things. You have to savor small victories. You have to praise people. You have to let them shine. You have to ask them what they want, and allow that to happen. And I think that's one of the best things, at least for me, of being a leader is to be able to allow them to get what they want from life, from some microcosmos that you have developed. In this case, it's a company, it's a small company. And you have to, I think that is one of the most fulfilling things. But I think that you have to feel fulfilled with that. but not only feel fulfilled when someone praises you for that. So you can't expect them to thank you for that, or publicly thank you like everybody. Like, I mean, I see a lot of colleagues that they need to post everything of every single praise that people do to them, and I think that's a very selfish thing, you know. I think I think the most impactful help is the one that you do without expecting anyone to even acknowledge that you helped them, you know. And if you can get into that position, which I am not, by the way, I'm not, but if you can get that position that you completely abdicate from the praises and keep giving without the need for that, I think it's where you are on the sweet spot. It's a little of a solitude, of a lonely place there, but praises will come to you when they are needed, and they will be more sincere and more honest and more unexpected sometimes. But yes, for you to have your people's back, for him to have your back, you need to have their back, and it's a full-time job to be a leader there.
Yeah, and you should provide a safe place for difficult conversations to be held.
Yes,
and I think the best reward, just finishing on what you were saying, is that is the environment, right? It's the environment of making accountability something that you and your team members are proud of, right? And rather than driven by the fear of repercussions. So I think that's the best reward. But just to finish, to be held accountable, if you don't deliver, you will have repercussions, and this is very important too. So for the colleagues that already tried all of this, right, and they are very understandable, and they have their teammates back, and but they are frustrated by the lack of accountability in their clinics, or even if they are not the clinic owners, if they work in a clinic and they are very frustrated by the lack of accountability in the workplace. How did you manage to make all of this work? Because if you are not responsible, you have to suffer the repercussions, right? And I
because
have to say,
those are the rules of life.
And I have to say that I did not have, and I don't have, the answer is yours, but I did not have an answer for this. And when I heard you talking on your class, it was like a light bulb light up in my head. Says, yeah, he got it. He found a way to do it. So, and we are going to talk more about this, and maybe in another episode. And on the course, you're going to give the step-by-step on how you do this, because this has mathematics, this has a protocol also. It's different if it's for assistant, it's different if it's for dentists.
Yes.
But how do you hold your staff accountable? What is the repercussion if they are not accountable?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you should have repercussions, because in everything in life,
there's
if you don't do what you're supposed to, that's a rule of nature. I mean, if you're surfing, if you don't row strong enough, if there's a big set coming, it's going to hit your head, and you're going to suffer on that. I mean, this is not something that is created by man, by society. So repercussions of when you don't do something good is the law of nature, isn't it? I mean, this is how the planet works. This is how Cosmo works. So the way that I found to do that is by ticketing the team members, whether it's a doctor or whether it's an assistant. And for the assistants, by the way, like you were telling, and I'm not going to get into much detail, but I find them on their incentives. I mean, they earn incentives for productivity, and we'll talk how I give incentives to all of them in several ways that we can give incentives for number of new patients, number of productivity, whatever. But they get these incentives every month. And if they make a mistake, and if they know that the strict rules for that procedure, they are fined in 10 euros, 20 euros, 30 euros. And dentists as well, if they don't write things down, if they don't do the things that are supposed to do, they are also fined in a certain amount. And well, you may say that, and this is the last thing that I'm going to say about this. We'll talk a lot about in some other podcasts. But you may say, well, but they don't like that. No one likes to be paying money. Well, you can have a system that all that money goes to an account. So every money collected from fining goes to an account. And at the end of the year, for example, at the end of the month, you do like a dinner with everybody, or you do like a team building activity, or you just give that to a social charity or something like that. But yes, I think that people should suffer financial consequences for not doing things right. Just like as in nature, you would suffer if you don't do things right.
My last question is, before you had that system of having fines or tickets for when things are not
go wrong,
or go wrong, or when things are not delivered the way that they are supposed to be. Before you had that system, my question is, did you notice a before and after? I mean, did you created that system because you had problems on the accountability part, because you felt you had to have that in place. Otherwise, there were certain things that they were not going to be done.
Yeah. I mean, they would not be done with such in such a high degree, I would say. But yes, I've been doing this since 2007, after the second year that I opened my practice. So I don't actually even know a way of working without this. I don't think it's possible to work without consequences when you don't do stuff. But you have to make it light, and you have to make it very clear. I mean, if the nurses, they need to write down how much the patient has paid and is about to pay next week in terms of the payment agreement that we have with the patient. If that is not written down, that is a serious mistake. Because the other dental nurse that opens the file next time that the patient comes, they don't know what is happening. So that is a very serious mistake. And they know it's very clear. The rules are very clear. They need to write down what is the patient paid today. This is especially in cases where they have payments of, let's say they pay half in the beginning, 1/4 in the middle, and 1/4 in the end of treatment. This needs to be written down, and it needs to be followed through. And it's not difficult, but they need to understand this is a critical procedure. So if they fail with that, and that is written down, if they fail with that, they will be fined in 30 euros, for example. And yes, it does work very well. It does work very well. So, but you have to, I think it's important for them to realize that this is for their own good. You know, this is for their own good, and this is, and you can send that to the social charity, or you can send that you can do a team building, you can do a dinner, you can do whatever you want with that money. But yes, I think it works very well. And I think I thought a lot about, because the other option is drama. The other option is drama. And drama is never good.
Especially when you are in a position that you want to start making those changes that we talked about on the last episode, right? So if you want to start to make some small changes that you know that in the future will give you benefits, right? I'll give you also a practical example of a colleague that was talking to me not so long ago. So he implemented the protocol because he started to document his cases, right? He already did it, but he started to take it more seriously. He bought the software, the machine, the camera, everything. And he trained and held a specific assistant. For the end of the day, she had one job, which is to put everything in the Dropbox, something like that. But so every picture in the end of the day had a specific place to be, right? And I mean, every week he said it was drama. One day she did it, another day she didn't do it. One day I was with the patient presenting a case. I wanted to find the picture that I knew I had taken in another case. I opened the file, it was not there. I come back to her and she said, yes, yes. So it's that drama takes a lot of energy. It takes the fun of the job. It puts you in a place that you are starting to doubt if you want to continue to do this or not. Because he said, okay, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore, because I'm spending more time on these episodes with her than I'm taking advantage of implementing this on my everyday. And this was something that he was doing because it was something that he wanted, that he knew that it was going to bring some value to his work, and he was in a place that he was doubting of that value.
But did he implement a ticketing thing?
No, I suggested it. I said, look,
yes,
you have to
find them.
I suggested it. I said, look, I don't know the mathematics of things. We are going to do it in the course. This, of course, has a system.
You know the advice. Yeah, the advice is, and we'll talk a lot about this, is some people will like to paint you as a monster for doing that. You have to be ready for that, because they will cartoon you.
But not if you are straightforward with it from the first place.
Yes.
Not if you explain, like we said,
exactly.
Like if you bring the numbers, if you bring the facts. Not if you are completely transparent where the money goes. Not with all the process. It's impossible for you to picture you as a monster. Well, I mean, impossible. It's not.
I wouldn't say as a monster. Yeah, I wouldn't say as a monster, but some people they will. It's, you have to accept that some people, they are not emotionally developed a lot to understand it.
That's another question.
That's a huge part of the population. That's a huge part of the population. You have to be honest. They will say, especially with this cancellation policy that has repercussions all over, that no one is allowed to have an opinion or to stand it, that everybody needs to be extremely polite and compassionate. And it's impossible to be a leader if you don't take these sorts of decisions, and some people, even though we take all this extra care and everything that you said is right, you have to make sure that you explain why it's because of this and this and this. And I think that the most important thing is not to feel drama for yourself. So this is the implementation, and I understand that this may be difficult to you, but this is the way it is, and the money goes this way, okay? So this is the thing and you have to be very emotionally neutral when you say this, okay? For them to understand this is nothing personal. This is just what it is, okay? Because if you are not, if you show a little bit of emotion, for example, your student, he says he was pissed off with that.
Yeah. He was doubting himself, and he was doubting the measures that he was taking.
But if he shows he's pissed off with her with that conversation, he loses it
completely.
He loses so he needs to be emotionally neutral with her, and that is difficult because we are not made to be emotionally neutral, right? So you have to be able to navigate these emotions throughout the day, and ideally even show the opposite, which is showing some compassion, showing some empathy, showing well, we are doing this because I don't want to fire you. I want you because I know you have good things, and I'm here to help you. This is very easy to talk in a podcast, but very difficult to do. But I am here to help you, and this is why I'm doing this, okay? So I want you to be working at your best, and I know this is not so. I think this will bring more awareness to what you are doing, and you will do it better.
Okay. This is already a long episode. Maybe we can talk also about emotional intelligence in dentistry, which is a big one. Very important. I think that emotional intelligence should be taught to every dentist. It's you. I mean, you deal with emotions every day. The other person's your own. But we're going to talk about that for sure. We touched on very important things here today. We even some very measurable and very practical ones that we are going to teach in our course. And as usually, I'm going to say goodbye with the invitation to check our course. I'm going to put the address on the show notes. If you want to learn all of this in a practical way and how to apply it to your everyday dentistry life, join us next year in Sagres, 4, 5, and 6 of March. Of next year, we will be together, me and Andre. We call it like an immersion course because you're going to be very free and it not intensive because there's going to be a lot of practical exercises, not only theory, but there are a lot of practical exercises, and it's going to be a very fun thing to do for us. So I would invite you to read about our course, and if you have any questions about it or any doubts, just reach out. Our contacts are in the show notes. Thank you so much, Andrea, for the conversation. It was wonderful as usual. Again, I wish you a good week of time off. I know that you are there to just to relax and enjoy. And I wish you a very, very good week. And thank you for the lovely conversation.
Thank you again, Manuel. It's always good to talk to you and to brainstorm about all these things. And this is a very special episode because I'm in a place that I love to be, and it's very rewarding for me to be able to talk about this with you and to share with other colleagues. And yeah, I would invite you to come to Sagres next year to explore and to discuss and to interact with all of you, because I am sure that you will come out of the course with more clarity and more awareness and more determination to do and to lead your dentistry and your life in the way that you yourself wanted to be led. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.